Hi, I'm Todd Clausen from the Democratic Chronicle, and I'm here with Greater Rochester Chamber of Commerce President and CEO Robert Duffy. I'm still trying to get used to the chamber name. It's been about a year or so, right?
Too many words.
We're here to talk about a program that you guys are having coming up, Active Shooter and Workplace Violence. Now, when you hear that title, you know, my mind kind of goes to these mass incidences that happen around the country. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we still have experienced a lot of workplace violence across the country. Those stories are pretty well known nationally. And we feel a responsibility, being in Chamber of Commerce, to work with our members. So we had surveyed our members. We put a program on last year at Nazareth College, had a number of law enforcement experts come and speak. And it was the basics of run, hide, fight, and some of the things would happen in a situation. And I enjoyed a long career in law enforcement here in Rochester. And one thing I've always believed in, that when you drill and train on things and have an understanding of what you should do in a crisis, when that happens, you do it instinctually. Because often if you don't have that background, stress moves in and you don't really act quickly. So I think the more we can provide those opportunities and drill, the better. And this next program really takes it to a different level. It really is about post-traumatic situation. It's about recovery and really helping companies understand if you happen, God forbid, to have a situation like this, how would you recover? How would, the impact on your business, on your employees? And what we saw out in California when that terrible shooting happened with many people killed in a social services building, I remember reading stories about people not wanting to go back to work. So you can get a sense of when these things happen, you have to be prepared for how do you react afterwards. So we have another great panel of law enforcement experts. We're going to have a tabletop exercise. We're going to create a fictitious company called Acme. A number of local executives will be involved at tabletop. And I go back to my police career. We used to have a tabletop exercise for responding to critical incidents. And it is powerful to oversee what can happen and make decisions on how you would react. You make mistakes, you learn from those, but the methodology of doing that, I believe, is of great value to CEOs, executives, and really all employees.
Now, while we talked a little bit about large-scale events that can occur in the workplace, I sort of think about some more common things that happen, maybe a robbery at a bank or something. Will this session go over some things that you can do in those types of cases as well?
I think they'll hit on, the first issue is if you have, any, and a workplace violence issue could be, a mass casualty situation. It could be somebody comes in and there's a fight, an assault, it could be a bank robbery. You have, probably an array of things that happen. But when those things do occur, the fear that really exists in employees who are there, what they go through, and then the fear of potential customers and family members. And I remember, I could tell you incidents in my career. I was involved at the Thurston Road Bank. It was a robbery hostage situation where it was the first time a hostage was ever killed. When the hostage taker announced he'd do it at a certain time, he shot a bank teller. He was later shot by a member of our SWAT team. But it was the old Security Trust building on Thurston Road. It's now a different business. Happened in 1981. I was, a young police officer in my 20s on a SWAT team position. Had, unfortunately, a bird's eye view of everything on that. Saw everything happen. We had bad equipment. I won't bore you with that story. My point is, every time I'm on Thurston Road, and here we are, more than 3 decades later, I think of that. And so I bet anybody who was there or in that neighborhood that day who has that history. And that's part of this program, is to how do we recover from these situations? How do businesses get back to business and not lose their economic pipeline and lose customers? And it's a very complex situation, but we have a lot of very good people that'll be teaching and discussing the panel. We have consultants who are past law enforcement and military. We have several law enforcement agencies. We have leaders from the RPD, from the Sheriff's Department, the state police will be part of this. So we have some great expertise, and a big part of it is going to be this interaction with the participants on a tabletop exercise, the audience, and I believe we all learn from listening, asking questions, and hopefully walk away with a little better understanding of some things that we would take back to our companies and do.
You mentioned some of the sort of human toll that happens for individuals that go through these circumstances. What other things does a situation like this kind of impact a business? I mean, I'm sure there's disruption of all sorts.
You have, I believe, employees who may not want to return to work. And think of if here we are in downtown Rochester, if across the street there was a robbery, an assault, and say somebody was shot in a business, we might not want to walk into that business the next day or the next week. So the business owner is impacted when customers are maybe afraid to go in, don't want to be in there. And so there's all sorts of trauma and impacts that happen after these incidents. And I don't think this program has the answers to all this, but I think it gives an awful lot of food for thought. It has some great expertise there, and it'll get people thinking about things they should think about. And again, that prevention aspect, when you think about it and you're planning, if, God forbid, something were to happen, at least you have a much greater sense on some of the steps you should take.
All right. So this year's active shooter and workplace violence seminar is going to be on Wednesday, February 8th. At the Strong National Museum of Play. You can register through the Chamber of Commerce?
Yes, register through Chamber of Commerce. I would tell you, if you're interested, to please register soon. When we had the event at Nazareth, we had a large crowd and a very engaged crowd. And a Strong Museum is a great place to have it, but I would expect this will equally draw a pretty significant crowd to it. So,
should we go to the Chamber's website? Where should we go?
The GreaterRochesterChamber.com. Go on our website, click on it, and we have a great new website that we had put in place last year. And I would encourage everybody to go on that website. You'll see information, and if you don't find it, then feel free to give us a call. And I'd refer you to call Dan Smith, who leads our communications team, and Susan George, who leads our events team, and either Dan or Susan and their team can provide all the information.
Okay, now the Democratic Chronicle is sponsoring this event. Who else is pairing up to pull off the event?
Well, D&C is going to be a big sponsor. I have a list. I don't know if I read it all, but we have several sponsors. I don't want to take all the time, but we have some great sponsors. I'll leave for you if you want to list those afterwards, as opposed to going word for word on those. But we thank the Democratic Chronicle, who is a great partner of ours, and all the businesses who will sponsor this. And I think it's a sponsorship for a great cause, and hopefully with a great outcome in terms of people walking away with a much better sense of how we should prepare and plan for such incidents.
Okay, thank you. And just to recap, the Active Shooter and Workplace Violence Campaign seminar is February 8th. Go to the Greater Rochester Chamber of Commerce website for tickets and more information.